Bem-vindos de novo a este congresso.
Hello, now we're back to the DBC conference, APDC. We're now going to talk about 5G, the next generation. Our next speaker is considered a futurist and recognized as a specialist in the area of innovation. He has supported investors, companies, and governments even, and is called Matthew Griffin.
Hi everybody, now that the 5G auctions have closed, it's my honor and privilege to be able to bring you this presentation, 5G, the next generation. So my name's Matthew Griffin, I'm a futurist and I'm the CEO and founder of the 311 Institute and World Futures Forum. I look at two kinds of futures. I look at the next 20 years, so that's from today to roughly sort of 2040. If you're a multinational organization, typically you care about that kind of timeline because you're looking at the next 3, 5, 10, maybe 20 years. If you're a sovereign government, though, I look at deep futures as well, which is 20 to 50 years out, because you care about the future of energy, infrastructure, communications, education, jobs and skills, and all these kinds of different areas of your economy. Now, when we could look at 5G and the mobile space, I work with a large variety of players basically in the industry. So I work with device manufacturers like Samsung and Huawei, basically where we actually look at what life will be like over the next 50 years, particularly with, for example, Samsung's case, they have their centennial in 2069. We also look at the future of devices, you know, the what comes after the smartphone question, and we've got answers there. I also work with organizations like ARM and Qualcomm. Yeah, if you have a look at ARM, over 70% of all the world's data flows through an ARM processor. And over the next 10 years, that could very well be 100%. I mean, that's staggering when you think about it, but it also shows the importance of, you know, the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, basically in the future. I also work with organizations like Interdigital, as well as organizations like Microsoft. And if you have a look at Microsoft, for example, Microsoft is going to greatly benefit, as is AWS, basically, and the cloud providers in a 5G universe, for reasons that'll come clear. So when you have a look at exponential technologies, the technologies that you can use and combine together to create your next generation products or services, or the generations after that. There are over 450 exponential technologies that I track. There are 180 on this starburst. Every single individual technology on this starburst has got an addressable market opportunity of at least $500 billion, and each one of them can either disrupt one industry or every industry. Now, when you have a look at technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, blockchain, 3D printing, and importantly, 5G, they are all what we call general purpose technologies. Essentially, they are the foundations on which lots of other cross-sector products and services are built. They are integral, to almost every single part of society. And when you consider how you can combine 5G with lots of these other technologies, that's where the really interesting stuff happens. And I'm not going to go through this starburst, you can download it at the link. But frankly, when we start looking at what the future has in store for us in the next 10 years as we roll out 5G around the world, it's staggering. So, welcome to downloading a movie in 49 seconds era. That sounds great. Welcome to the ability to do tele-robotic surgeries when the surgeon is hundreds or even thousands of miles away from the patient.
We had a young woman with an acute heart attack. The total transfer time to get her to our hospital was 3 hours. There's a feeling of helplessness as a physician that you know what the treatment is to limit their chance of death, but you can't get to them.
Our hypothesis is that if we implement remote robotics in its full capacity, we will change the lives for hundreds of thousands of patients in the US in millions around the world.
Using technologies like 5G networks and robotic systems to provide cardiac care at a distance and be able to do telestenting has the potential to change the landscape of medicine. 5G technology really opens up the possibility to do these over longer distances with minimal delays in signal and transmitting greater amounts of data.
Being able to reach a patient hundreds of miles away to deliver the care they need when they need it is one of the most disruptive things happening in the medical industry.
So 5G enabled a lot of what I'll call tele-X abilities. The ability for a surgeon to do teleoperations while they are in a completely different country to the patient. So anything that you consider tele-X is a great application for 5G, and I've got some more examples. But seriously, the reason basically why I showed you those two examples is not necessarily because they're practical, it's because from a marketing perspective, that's what you're being force-fed. Download a movie in 49 seconds. When was the last time you downloaded a Netflix movie to your phone? The only time that you did that was when you were boarding a plane, and that was probably about 18 months ago, thanks to coronavirus. And as for teleoperations and telerobotics, basically within the surgical field, that gives you the wow. So the Netflix piece is the that's fast. The teleoperations piece is wow, that's an amazing sci-fi-like technology, basically, and wow, isn't it amazing that we have the technology and the capability to do that today? But really, when we start talking about 5G, what does it really do for us? So let's start digging into some things. So if you're an enterprise, one of the first things I would actually say is 5G will mean that you have to bring your IT and operational technology together, because you've got a huge number of different devices out in the wild, basically, that you're now going to need to be pulling data in from, and that's going to have to integrate basically with your main enterprise IT stack. Other things, say goodbye to fiber. If you're a consumer, if I've got access to millimeter wave 5G, which is roughly anywhere between 1 gig to 1.5 gig in speed, I don't need my broadband provider any longer. Wave goodbye to fiber. You can even wave goodbye to fiber backhauls, especially if you're a business. Welcome to the dumb phone era. Congratulations. Now you can just imagine these kind of adverts, basically from companies like Samsung, basically, or Apple, saying, our next phone is amazing. It's got a fantastic screen. It's got 5G connectivity. That's it. It's got a good camera as well. 5G, because it is fundamentally fast and because the latencies are millisecond, you can stream everything. And because of this, you can turn your devices, your smart devices, into dumb devices, which is kind of counterintuitive when you think about it, but actually, you can do it. So when we think about app downloads, if you go home later and you download an app, 5G means you don't need to download an app any longer. You don't need the app on your phone. You just stream it from the cloud. In addition to that, when we can start offloading compute, memory, and storage basically via 5G into the cloud, you can do some interesting things. This is an augmented reality smart contact lens from a company called Mojo Vision. So technology always gets smaller, it always gets cheaper, and it always gets more performant. Now, when we have a look at some of the smart devices that we have in store in the future, if you're thinking of a lot of the use cases that 5G enable, for example, virtual reality use cases, and you think, well, I don't like those big clunky headsets. Facebook, Panasonic, and other organizations have baked virtual reality into a standard pair of sunglasses. So when you think about what you'll be able to do with 5G in the future, don't assume that you'll be using these big, bulky HoloLens, virtual reality headsets, etc. that you're using today, because you won't. Now, in addition to that, when we start looking at artificial intelligence codecs, we can start streaming 8K video basically to a device, but with 80% less data. When we look at things like foveated rendering for virtual reality, you can stream ultra-high definition, either 4K and even 8K virtual reality experiences to headsets, again, using 80% less data, because foveated rendering just renders the bit in the middle and your peripheral vision does the rest. There's all sorts of nuances basically in 5G, basically, that you might not have seen before. So hopefully this is useful. But kind of, so what to all that stuff? Now, here are some interesting use cases. Now, we can use virtual reality to manage people's chronic pain while they're at home. So you have a virtual reality headset. These are already starting to spin up in the US, and you can manage chronic pain at home. It's actually been proven to be about 50 to 60% effective using virtual reality treatments while people are actually at home to manage chronic pain symptoms. So it's kind of a different spin on telehealth. In addition to that, what about helping the blind see? We have already helped people who are legally blind, because you don't have to be completely blind to be legally blind. If you kind of close your eyes 99% of the way, and I hold some fingers up and say, how many fingers am I holding up? You probably won't be able to really tell me. You can classify as legally blind. Using virtual reality headsets, bearing in mind that you can adjust the displays, artificial intelligence and 5G, you can change the way people see. So you can change the images that they see, and you can literally help the legally blind see. How about that as a 5G use case that you never thought of before? When we start having a look at the autonomous revolution, the autonomous vehicle revolution, 5G obviously enables V2X. It also enables hive minds, because if you have a car in Japan that sees one thing, all of a sudden it can communicate what it's learned about that thing to the rest of the autonomous vehicle fleet, for example, over in the US or Europe, and so they know. So 5G actually brings about machine hive mind constructs. Same thing with telerobotics, same thing with robotics, and actually humans are next, particularly when we look at 6G. That's a different story. HoloRide. So Audi have got a platform called HoloRide, and this is where you can be wearing your virtual reality headset in a car, but you're looking around you, and the virtual reality headset is seeing what you're seeing or what you would be seeing, and starting to overlay games on top of that while you're actually in the car. So it turns a boring car journey into an interesting one. Now, I mentioned teleoperations and the ability to do remote surgeries. Consider this. Doosan used a 5G network. They had operators in Germany using a 5G network and drone construction equipment in South Korea. And the construction workers based in Germany built buildings and sites in South Korea. So when we start talking about this post-COVID era of work from home, work from anywhere, it applies to a whole variety of jobs that you probably never imagined could ever be work from anywhere. Digital twins, the ability basically to create digital twins and then quiz them. For example, a service engineer at a wind turbine, using combinations of technologies. So 5G, digital twins, augmented reality or virtual reality, natural language processing, and artificial intelligence. Engineers are able to say to the wind turbines, how are you feeling? It's a little bit like a GP consultation. And the wind turbines can come back and say, well, you changed my RPM about 2 weeks ago, and based on my data, you've shortened my useful life by 20%. Now, as a fix, I can either apply my own fix from the App Store and kind of using AI constructs, or you can go and adjust things manually. What would you like to do? So when we look at digital twins basically are incredibly interesting. If you have a digital twin, you can run all kinds of analysis on it. In addition to that, you can use a creative machine to actually design you a better machine. Again, that's a whole other story. And if you saw my other presentation, I discussed those there. Now, because we actually have such low latencies out in the real world, thanks to millimeter wave 5G, if you have your smart device, your smart contact lenses, or your sunglasses that are really virtual reality glasses, you can turn the entire world basically into your playground. So, for example, we could throw a ball and we could play catch together. I could use haptics and I could start rugby tackling you, even though, again, you might be 100 miles away. So when we start looking at the use of 5G, particularly within the entertainment space, that's where most consumers are really going to start getting their teeth into it. Some very exciting stuff there. But what about this? So consider this one. If you have a pair of augmented smart glasses or anything else, what about changing the computer interface? When you go away on holiday or when you go away on a work vacation, you pack your laptop. Why not just pack your sunglasses? And then you get access to augmented reality operating systems like the ones here. And again, using haptics, if you have a haptic ring, you can type on virtual keyboards that really aren't there. There's all kinds of different. These could improve productivity by over 30 to 40%. In fact, when it comes to augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, most people say that 5G actually makes it work. And it will. We have HoloLens technology, so mixed reality technologies. So if you have a look at Microsoft HoloLens, it digitizes physical presence. Now, what that means is if you were originally going to hire a set of people based in your local town because you all needed to physically be together, or you just thought it would be a good idea, that face-to-face interaction, by digitizing physical presence, you can hire whoever you need in a completely different country and yet still provide facets of that same face-to-face experience. This changes the future of work. In addition to that, what about reinventing FaceTime? So this is just a little clip. So we're all used to FaceTime. I spend a lot of time traveling normally, basically, and I miss my family, and we'll do video calls. But if I've got a pair of smart glasses, I can now play catch with my son or baseball with my son. And the reason why I could do that is because of a combination of different technologies. So you need telepresence technologies that understand how you're standing. We can do that with smart clothes. We can do it with rings. We can do it with all kinds of different things. We need a system that can create augmented reality experiences on the fly. So NVIDIA already let you stream augmented reality experiences via their cloud. Now I need a system that can figure out that I'm throwing something. And on the other end, my son needs to understand that that ball's coming at him. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in, because artificial intelligence is kind of the glue that makes all this really work. Because it understands basically that if I do this, that I'm pitching, it understands the trajectory of the ball, the velocity of the ball, where it's probably going to land. So these are some of the hollow experiences that 5G enable that simply are not available with today's technologies, as advanced as they are. Talk like a native. If you can stream universal translators like Google's universal translators from the cloud, with millisecond latency, that now means that the earbuds that you have in can translate what the other person is saying in real time. There's no waiting, there's no lag. All of the AI models and NLP models are updated automatically in the cloud. And when we start having a look at some more practical use cases in the first responder example, as well as the insurance industry's case, now, if you're a first responder, you can have a 5G connected drone that's streaming ultra high definition video, basically to a command center or C2 center. Now, on the one hand, basically you can then overlay augmented reality. You could use artificial intelligence, and that system can now start directing your first responders to say, look, go to this house first, then this house, because this house is at greater risk than that one, and I think there are people in there. So there are huge implications for first responders when we look at how we can use 5G. But from an insurance perspective, let's say you take this example here. From an insurance perspective, I could take that same drone footage and I can analyze it on the fly, and I can say, look, I know that these two houses are flooded. I can see the depth of the water. We know basically the value of their contents because it's a connected home, for example. We know what their premiums are. Insurance companies can start using geospatial data combined with a lot of other big data to do automated payouts. They can say, look, we know that your house flooded. It flooded up to this level. You probably lost all these contents. Therefore, here's an automatic check for you. By the way, we're putting you up at the local hotel. So these are all kind of sort of different use cases, and we're just touching the surface here. Heat seekers. So over in China, basically, they started using DJI drones during coronavirus, basically to scan people for heat signatures, and then they would use those drones. Same in Spain. They would use those drones basically to then say to people, by the way, you're infected, go somewhere else, go to a hospital or whatever it happens to be. So when we start having a look at the combination of drones and 5G, there's some very interesting geospatial and construction use cases there as well. Lots going on in that space. And when it actually comes to drones and being prepared in the 5G era, consider this. 6G will be coming along in about 2030 to 2035. As you're laying out your enterprise IT stack, 6G will go up to 10 kilometers above the Earth's surface. 5G is quite two-dimensional. 6G will be three-dimensional. So there's going to be big opportunities basically for what we call isogun opportunities basically with 6G, and 5G really opens the door to a lot of fantastic new use cases. It's an exciting bandwagon to be on, frankly. And then last, just as a bit of fun, as and when we all manage to get to the slopes, you might have these Oakley glasses that have got augmented reality. So you're skiing down the slopes, you're doing your slalom. Your augmented reality glasses can show you the path that you're taking. So on the one hand, that's useful. But in addition to that, if you combine artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence coaching with haptic and smart clothing, now we can provide a feedback loop and we can get your salopettes to vibrate in a very particular way if your form's not right. And those salopettes can say, well, you went down the slope this way. If you bent your knee in a little bit, then actually you'd have got a bit more speed. And this part of your clothing can vibrate. So 5G starts ushering in the sensory era as well. And as for my part, by seeing the 5G era, I'm going to conclude this here. So thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed some of these exciting use cases. And I look forward to what you create with 5G in the future as well. Thank you very much. Goodbye.